everybody, and welcome to the very first HellHound Heights horror story readout. Tonight's story is a very, very special story. It is called The Howl Beneath the Tinsel. The snow started falling too early that year, thick and wet, muffling the town of Pine Hollow like a burial shroud. Christmas lights blinked weakly in the windows, struggling against the long winter night. People said the forest beyond the last street lamp had gone quiet, but not the peaceful kind of quiet, the quiet that listens. Eli Mercer hadn't believed the stories until Christmas Eve. He was driving home from his late shift at the mill, radio crackling with warped carols, when he saw something move across the road, too fast for a deer, too tall. The headlights caught a flash of fur, matted with ice and blood before it vanished into the trees. Eli laughed it off. Heart pounding away, Pine Hollow lived on rumors. Every winter someone swore they heard wolves howling near the old church ruins. Every winter livestock went missing. Every winter the sheriff blamed coyotes. That night, the howling began before midnight. It rolled through the town in waves. Low, broken, almost human. Eli sat stiff on his couch, clutching a mug of cocoa gone cold, staring at the Christmas tree his daughter had decorated before she moved away. The ornaments rattled softly as something struck the side of the house. Once. Twice. Then came the scratching. Eli grabbed the fireplace poker and crept to the front window. Frost coated the glass, but he wiped a circle clear. What stared back made his breath seize. The creature stood upright in the snow, antlers of shadowed branches framing its hulking shape. Its eyes glowed a sickly gold, fixed on the wreath hanging from Eli's door. Its jaws parted into a grin too wide, teeth slick with red. A strip of tinsel was tangled in its claws, glittering obscenely against black fur. Ho, 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 it rasped. The front door exploded inward. Eli ran. He fled into the night. Through drifting snow and screaming wind, the sound of claws tearing wood and flesh following close behind. Bells rang somewhere. Church bells. He realized with a jolt. The old church ruins. The story said that's where it always ended. He burst into the clearing, collapsing at the stone altar dusted in snow. The moon broke through the clouds. Full, merciless, glowing like a cold ornament hung in the sky. The werewolf stepped into the light. As it approached, Eli saw something worse than fangs. Beneath the fur, beneath the gore, was a familiar face twisting in agony. Father Callahan, the priest who disappeared years ago on Christmas night. I tried to bless it away, the thing sobbed, voice splitting between man and monster. I tried to bury it under hymns and prayer. The transformation finished with the crack of a bone. The howl that followed shattered the silence of Pine Hollow. By morning the town was empty. Houses stood open, trees still glowing, presents untouched beneath them. Blood stained the snow, spilled like wrapping paper. And deep in the forest something dragged a heavy sack with bones, humming a broken carol as it waited for the very next Christmas. Story 2. A moonlit hunt for fear. The forest learned their names before the people did. By the time the first scream tore through the pines, the moon was already high-bloated, bruised red, hanging low like a watching eye. The hikers thought the sound was an elk, or maybe a drunk camper playing games. They laughed, zipped their tents, and fed the fire until the shadows pulled long and thin across the ground. They never heard the footsteps approaching them from the woods. Werewolves don't crash through the woods like animals. They wait. They circle. They breathe with the trees until the forest itself forgets what silent used to sound like. The first man died standing up. Something massive slammed into him from behind, lifting him off his feet. He didn't even have time to scream before jaws closed around his shoulder, crushing bone like wet chalk. When the others turned, they saw eyes burning, intelligent, hateful, hovering just above the firelight. Not one pair, many. The fire went out all at once. That's when the howling started. It came from everywhere, above them, behind them, inside the trees. Deep, layered voices overlapping in a way no throat should manage. One woman ran. She made it 10 steps before a shape detached from the darkness and landed in front of her. It stood upright, taller than any man she'd ever seen, fur black as pitch, soaked in moonlight. Its muzzle was long and scarred, lips curled back to reveal teeth meant for tearing, not eating. When it smiled, she understood the worst truth of all. This thing enjoyed the hunt. She tried to beg. The werewolf tilted its head, listening like a curious dog, then ended the sound with one single swipe. The others scattered. They ran through the brush that clawed at their skin, through roots that tripped them, through a forest that had already chosen its side. Every direction led to more glowing eyes, more shadows peeling themselves free. One man climbed a tree, sobbing, whispering prayers until a werewolf climbed faster, nails digging into bark, jaws snapping inches from his face. The last survivor made it to the road just as dawn began to bleed into the sky. He collapsed to the asphalt, lungs burning, hands shaking, convinced he was safe. A massive shadow stretched across him. The werewolf stepped into the fading moonlight, fur slick with blood, red eyes dulling as the sun rose. It watched him for a long moment, breathing slow and steady, memorizing his scent. Then it turned away and disappeared back into the forest. They found the man later, alive, but broken, mind hollowed by what he'd seen. He tried to warn them, tried to explain that the wolves weren't cursed men or wild beasts. They were hunters. And every full moon, deep in the woods, they listened for footsteps, waiting for the forest to learn a new name. Story 3. The Land Between the Lakes. The land between the lakes has always had a way of swallowing sound. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath there, tangled in the dense Kentucky woods where the lakes pressed in from both sides. Locals said the silence meant something was listening. The Carter family didn't believe in that sort of thing, not at first. They arrived just before dusk, their SUV crunching over gravel. As they pulled into a small, isolated campground near the old trails, the air smelled like pine and damp earth. A perfect weekend getaway, they thought. A break from the screen's noise and the consistent hum of everyday life, but the woods was already watching. The first sign. It started with a deer. A young buck staggered out of the tree line while the Carters were unpacking. Its legs trembled, its eyes were wide, glassy, and wrong, like it had seen something it couldn't understand. Then it collapsed, throat torn open by something with claws, far too large for any predator that should have been in those woods. Tom Carter stared at the carcass, trying to rationalize it. A cougar, maybe? A bear? Something natural. But the tracks around the body were neither. They were shaped like footprints. Human footprints, but stretched, elongated, ending in deep gouges where the claws had dug into the soil. The howl. Night fell fast in the land between the lakes, as if darkness rushed in the moment the sun dipped below the trees. The family sat around the fire trying to shake off the unease. The flames crackled, marshmallows melted, the kids laughed, though their voices sounded too loud in the stillness. Then the howl came. It wasn't the long, mournful cry of a wolf. It was deeper, layered with something almost human, as if two voices were trapped inside the same throat. It rolled through the trees, vibrating the air, making the fire flicker. Tom stood up. Probably just a coyote, he said, but his voice betrayed him. His wife, Marissa, pulled the kids closer. The howl came again, closer this time. The hunt begins. Branches snapped in the darkness. Leaves rustled. Something moved with deliberate slowness. Circling the campsite, the firelight caught glimpses of it between the trees. A hulking shape, too tall to be an animal, too broad to be a man. The creature stepped forward. Its fur was matted and dark. Its limbs were long and powerful. Its face was a twisted blend of wolf and human, jaws lined with the teeth that glinted like wet knives. It burned with a feral intelligence. It wasn't hunting for food. It was hunting for sport. Tom grabbed the hatchet from the stump, but the creature moved faster than anything he'd ever seen. It lunged, swiping at him with claws that tore through the air. He barely dodged, stumbling backward. "Run!" he screamed. The family bolted into the woods. The chase through the pines. The forest became a maze of shadows. The werewolf crashed through the underbrush behind them, its growls echoing like thunder. Every few seconds it let out a low, rumbling snarl as if savoring the chase. The Carters reached an old service road. The moonlight spilled across it, pale and cold. They sprinted toward an abandoned ranger station they'd passed earlier. The werewolf howled again, closer than ever. Marissa pulled the kids ahead. "Don't look back," she whispered. But she did. And she saw it. Bounding on all fours now, faster than any animal had right to be, it locked eyes with them in the terrifying focus. The last stand. They reached the ranger station and slammed the door shut. Tom shoved a desk against it while Marissa grabbed a rusted flare gun from the wall. The creature hit the door with a force that shook the whole building. Wood splintered. Claws punched through the gaps. The flare gun trembled in Marissa's hands. Tom wrapped his arms around the kids, whispering that it would be okay, even though he didn't believe it. The werewolf roared, tearing the door from its hinges. Marissa fired. The flare shot into the creature's chest, exploding into a burst of red light. The werewolf shrieked, stumbling backward. Its fur ignited. It thrashed, howling in pain, and then bolted into the woods, leaving a trail of burning embers behind. The forest swallowed the sound again. Aftermath. By dawn, the Carters were found by a search team, shaken but alive. They told their story, but the rangers exchanged knowing looks and said nothing, because they heard the howls before, because they seen the tracks, because in the land between the lakes, the silence always meant something was listening, and something deep in the woods, a wounded werewolf, waited, healing, remembering, and hungering for the next family who thought the forest was just a place to camp. If you enjoyed these stories and would like to hear more from HellHound Heights, or if you had your own encounters that you would like to air, please submit your encounters to hellhoundheights@gmail.com. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and go check out another page that I support fully, Lord Starfox from Midnight Lycanthropy Podcast. Go check him out. Merry Cryptmas.